through. You must go through some heartache. You must go through some letdowns. You must go through some job losses. You must go through a divorce. You must go through some things that you might not necessarily want to go through. But God says, I have more in store for you. But first you got to put whatever is causing you to stand still, whatever is causing you to not move forward with the plan that I have given you, you gotta put it behind you. But when you think about the NCAA tournament, when you start thinking about the most iconic teams that have ever played in the tournament, you got to think about the Fab Five. The Fab Five were 5 freshmen who forever changed the outlook of college basketball. The Fab Five wore baggy shorts. The Fab Five wore black socks. The Fab Five were bald-headed. The Fab Five were known for talking trash to their opponents. The Fab Five were known for their monster and thunderous dunks. Everybody wanted to be like the Fab Five. Matter of fact, the Fab Five, they reminded you of what you would see on any given weekend in the hood on a Saturday. Guys dunking the basketball, talking trash, running up and down the court. Everybody wanted to be like the Fab Five. The Fab Five were a cultural phenomenon. Everybody wanted the Michigan starter jacket. Everybody wanted the Michigan jersey. Everybody wanted to be like the Fab Five. Everybody wanted to play like the Fab Five. That is, until one moment in history. It was in the 1993 championship game. The Fab Five was going against the University of North Carolina. The Fab Five didn't play their best game in the first half, so they were trailing for most of the game. They made a historic comeback, and finally, with only 20 seconds left in the game, the Fab Five had a chance to tie the game. And this is what happened. Let's play the clip.
A 2 to tie. Michigan will have to bring it.
Oh, he walked and the referee missed it.
Weber brings it into the front court. They have no timeouts remaining.
Oh, he causes too many timeouts. That's a technical foul.
He called a timeout. Michigan doesn't have any.
He got by with a...
Everybody wondered how Chris Webber, one of the best players in college basketball in the championship game, called the timeout. How did Chris Webber not know that they didn't have timeouts? Matter of fact, his coach told the team in the timeout before this play that they didn't have any timeouts. This past week, while I was on my mental rest, I had an opportunity to read his book that just came out a few months ago, titled By God's Grace. In the book, he talks about the infamous timeout. He said that at that moment, he felt that everything that he knew about God was a lie. He said he felt like God put him in front of millions of people and left him for dead. He said that even after he got drafted into the NBA, years had gone by, but he was always haunted by the timeout that cost them the championship game. He felt like God abandoned him. He felt like God didn't like him. He said, "Why me, Lord? Why did I have to go through this? Finally, after years of depression, he decided that he had to get up, finish crying, but get up and move past it. He said, I had to put it behind me. My brothers and sisters, that's what God is saying to somebody under the sound of my voice. You got to put it behind you. Whatever it is that's been keeping you from getting to the next level, you got to put it behind you. You got to put the divorce behind you. You got to put not being selected for that position behind you. You got to put the job loss behind you. You got to put it all behind you because God has blessings in store. But first, you got to put what's hurting you behind you. You got to put the betrayal behind you. You got to put the abuse behind you. You got to put being stabbed in the back behind you. God says, I have more in store for you. But first, you got to put whatever is causing you to stand still, whatever is causing you to not move forward with the plan that I have given you, you got to put it behind you. You got to put the failed business behind you. You got to put the failed grades behind you. You got to put all of that stuff behind you. You got to put the unexpected pregnancy behind you. You got to put the relationship that didn't work out behind you. God says, I have something more in store. You got to put it behind you. That's what Jesus is saying in our text on today. In our text, Jesus is the beginning of something that the disciples did not expect. For the past 3 years, Jesus had the disciples. He had been performing miracles. He had been taking disciples everywhere, healing the sick. And then Jesus says something out of the blue. He tells them, he says, I must go to Jerusalem and suffer. And then he also tells them at the end, he says, I must be killed. And then here it is, Peter goes and rebukes him. He says, never, Lord, this shall never happen to you. And Jesus, he says, get behind me, Satan, because you are a stumbling block to me. He says, there's some things that I must do. Once you see it, he says, I must go to Jerusalem and suffer. He says, I must be killed. My brothers and sisters, as you're putting things behind you and moving forward with God's plan for your life, there is one thing that you must know. You got to know that there are some things that you must go through. There's some things you got to go through in order for you to ride into your destiny. God has a big purpose for your life, but there are some things that you must go through. Jesus says, I got to suffer at the hands of the elders and the priests and the teachers. But not only do I have to suffer, he says, I must be killed. This is not what the disciples thought of Jesus. They thought of him as a slayer, a king that's going to come and rule. They're in their mind. They said, bro, what you talking about? We done left our jobs. You telling us you gonna die? Bro, what's wrong with you? We had a business. We left our homes to follow you. What you talking about? You got to go and suffer. No, you are the Messiah. At least we thought you were. What are you talking about? They didn't understand what Jesus was saying. Jesus says, I got a big purpose. And part of that purpose is that I got to go and suffer. And then I got to be killed. Because I'm going to do something great. Because I don't want to leave no doubt that I'm the Messiah. I got to go and suffer. There's a reason why I believe that I have the flock that I have. There's some things that I had to go through personally to be able to speak to you from personal experience. I don't have to go through everything, but there are some things I had to suffer for a while in order for me to speak to you, to your situation, because I've been through some of the same things that some of you have gone through. And I'm still going through things and still will go through some things. Jesus saying in this life, you will suffer. You will go through some things. I have a great plan for you, but there are some things that you must go through in order to get what I have for you. I remember when my wife and we were dating, and I really enjoyed her company. Like I told you, I looked for it, was in a small town. It was, I was like, where does she work? And finally had the opportunity to meet up with her. And so we started hanging out a little bit. And like I said, I wasn't from that city. And, and I said, you know what? She ain't quite moving as fast as I want her to move. I enjoy being around her, but this relationship taking a little too long to kind of really come together. So I said, there's something I must do to nudge her to speed up the process, in this courting situation. And she would tell you, I always used to tell her, I said, why you not all on me and stuff? And so not a sexual thing. It's one of those things, kind of a mental thing, is, to where I could feel like I'm in control, like, hey, I got this all sewed up. And so we would sometimes watch television in my apartment, and I would be sitting on the couch. She's just sitting on the couch, and I'm like, why she's not laying on me or nothing? And so she used to tell me, she said, I don't know what kind of girls you've been dating, but I ain't gonna be getting all on you and stuff. And so I came up with a plan. I said, there's something I must do to speed this thing up. And so they had something every year in Jackson County, Mississippi. They had the Jackson County Fair. And so I said, hey, you want to go to the fair? So we went to the fair. And if you know me, I don't like getting on rides. I'm going to go get some cotton candy or corn dogs and that kind of stuff. But I don't get on rides. And so I conjure up a plan to get her all up on me. And so I look at one of the rides out there, and it's called the Sky Master. Here's a picture of the Sky Master. And so if you don't know nothing about the Sky Master, what it does, it goes up and down, kind of like the pendulum or the hand on the clock. It goes up and down. And so I said, hey, let's get on the Sky Master. And so I said, sure enough, it's gonna scare her enough to get on me and stuff. And so I get on, even though I'm shaking in my boots, I get on the Sky Master, and it goes up, and I start yelling. And so she says, why are you hollering? I said, why ain't you hollering? She cool, calm, and collected. And so it goes back down and goes up again. And I'm just yelling. And I'm looking over, and so she's just chilling. I said, man, I picked the wrong plan, because this ain't gonna work. And so it goes back down, and it goes all the way up to the top, and it stops while we're upside down. And I started yelling out of the top of my lungs. I said, get me down. I started calling for my mama. I said, get me down. I shouldn't have did this. I'm sorry. Put me down. And I'm still hanging. They had us hanging for about, I don't know, 60 seconds. I don't know. It was a long time. And they finally got us down to the bottom. And I got off the Sky Master. And I'm feeling embarrassed at this time. So if she comes over and she put her arms around me, she says, that was fun, wasn't it? I said, it was. My plan worked, and the rest is history. Now that was part of my purpose. Y'all remember a couple weeks ago when I cried like a baby because I was full of emotions? Now what if I would have married somebody that don't know how to pray? You remember, I couldn't even pray. And I had to ask my wife to pray on the drop of a dime. What if I married somebody who didn't know how to pray? Now I just made that for color for you, just to see that there are some things that you must go through. I went through some stuff just to speed up the dating process, but there are some things in your life that you must go through. You must go through some heartache. You must go through some letdowns. You must go through some job losses. You must go through a divorce. You must go through some things that you might not necessarily want to go through. But God said on today, whatever it is, you got to put it behind you. Whatever is keeping you from getting to the next level, you got to put it behind you. And the next thing you got to do is you got to call out the stumbling block and put it behind you. That's the question I want you to ponder for yourself, because you know what it is. What's your stumbling block? Here it is in the text. I'm not making it up. Here it is. Peter took Jesus aside and began to rebuke him. He says, "Never, Lord," he says, "this shall never happen to you." Remember, Jesus says, he says, "I must suffer at the hands of the leaders." And he says, "I must die." And Peter, out of love, he says, "No, this can't happen to you. This shall never happen." But Jesus, he says, "Peter, get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. You do not have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human things." Now I want you to see this. Out of love, Peter says, "Lord, this can't happen. You can't die. I love you too much." And so what I want you to do, think about that stumbling block. The fear of failure. Whatever it is, whatever your stumbling block is, you don't have the support that you think you need. Your parents, your cousins, your aunties, or whoever don't believe that you should start that business. They're just like Peter. They will say things out of love because they don't want to see you hurt. Don't leave your job and start that business because where's your health insurance? How are you going to have health insurance? Love will make you do and say things to protect the ones that you love. That's what Peter was doing. He says, "Lord, you got to be with us. You can't die." So when you find yourself finding your stumbling block, you got to hold on to the vision that God has given you. That's what Jesus does. Peter was being a stumbling block. Satan was using Peter. Peter was close to Jesus. And his words could have been a stumbling block for Jesus. You remember, Jesus has two natures, a human nature and a divine nature. In this moment, Jesus was in his human nature. That means he was feeling the exact same feelings that we have. Jesus was scared. Jesus didn't want to go to the cross. Jesus didn't want to do this, but he knew it was in his purpose to do it. Because ain't nobody else gonna die for our sins. He says, "You are a stumbling block because you're talking me out of it. But I gotta hold on to what my Father says. I got a greater purpose." That's what God is saying to you on today. Find your stumbling block and put it behind you. Move forward and go with God's plan. God has something greater. But whatever your stumbling block is, you got to put it behind you. If it's fear of messing up in front of a crowd, just like Chris Webber, put it behind you. If it's fear of getting into a new relationship after being in several failed relationships, you got to put it behind you. If it's fear of stepping out and trusting God and starting your own business, you got to put it behind you. If it's nothing has gone your way in the past 1 year, 2 years, 5 years, 10 years, you got to put that thing behind you. God says, I got more in store. Don't be your own stumbling block. God says, I will never leave you and I will never forsake you. It has all been for a purpose. He says, you got to suffer some things. Some things in your life, just like Jesus says, he says, I got to be killed. Some things may have to die in your life in order for you to get to the next level. call out your stumbling block. Just like Jesus said, he says, get behind me, Satan. You are a stumbling block to me. Because you don't have in mind the concerns of God, but merely human concerns. Your flesh, your human flesh, will talk you out of the very blessing that God has for you. Don't let fear stop you. Put it behind you. And the third thing is, know that you will be raised up. Here it is. I want you to see this in verse 21. Look at where the focus is on what Jesus says and what Peter, look at the focus. He says, from that time on, Jesus began to explain to his disciples that he must go to Jerusalem and suffer many things at the hands of the elders and the chief priests and the teachers of the law, and that he must be killed. This is the focus of Peter. But it's almost as if Peter didn't even hear the rest of what Jesus said. The disciples, it just went over their head. He says, and on the third day, be raised to life. He says, I must go to Jerusalem and suffer. I must be killed. But check this out. In just 3 short days, I will be raised to life. I'm going to be dead for 3 days, but I'll be raised to life. That's what God is saying to you on today. Whatever it is that has been keeping you down, you ain't gonna stay down for long. All you gotta do is call out your stumbling block. Put it behind you. Move forward and you will be raised. And so as I continue to read Chris Webber's book, By God's Grace, I didn't realize how close the timeout situation had brought him to God. Of course, I was one of those, just like everybody across America, I was wondering how in the world did Chris Webber not know that they ain't had no timeouts. I had the black socks and everything. Chris Webber in his book, he said that his whole life he had wondered what Philippians 4:6 really meant. His whole life he always wondered. The verse it says, do not be anxious about anything, but pray about everything by prayer and petition with thanksgiving. Present your request to God, and the peace of God, which transcends all understanding, will guard your hearts and mind with Jesus Christ. He always wondered what was God's peace. And he says during his depression, being embarrassed and not wanting to talk about the timeout for years, he says he went from depression to power because he discovered God's peace. Chris Webber in 2021 was inducted into the Hall of Fame of the NBA, one of the greatest players to ever play, someone who was embarrassed on the national stage, part of the Fab Five. But he says that was a big part of his life, but he understood that his purpose was not just basketball, but God had a bigger plan for his life. The basketball thing was just to put him on the platform, a platform to show young kids that you can fall, that you can mess up in front of millions of people, and you can still make it. You can still do great things. Matter of fact, he formed a charity, and he came up with the perfect name, Timeout Foundation, because he says everybody has a timeout season of before the situation that you've gone through and after. And by taking the time out, by him being on national television, by any time someone says Chris Webber's name, you always think about the timeout. And so now, instead of looking at it as a stain on his name, he looks at it with a positive lens. That if I can make it, you can make it. But he said it all started with me putting it behind me. It was something that defined him, but didn't define him. So that's what God is saying to you on today. Whatever the failure is in your life, whatever the stumbling block is, it won't define you. He says, put it behind you. Put the loss behind you. Put the mistakes behind you. Put all the things that you've done wrong behind you. Put all the things that folk have done wrong to you that you had no control over. Put it behind you and move on.